Hello, I'm Joe Griffith for Decade Lifestyle. Today our guest is Kevin M. McGovern, who is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of McGovern Capital LLC and a principal and partner in several other ventures. He has founded more than 20 companies, including Sobe Beverages, the fastest growing beverage company ever in the U.S., and the TriStrata Skincare Technology Company. He's currently devoting much of his energy to 4 projects. We'll discuss them. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, how you doing, Joe?
Okay. You have a long resume and you've accomplished a lot in a long career. When and how did you become an entrepreneur?
I think I started to be an entrepreneur probably when I was about 10 years old. I lost my father when I was 11. My mother was handicapped, so I had 3 jobs when I was 12. So I was doing entrepreneurial things, investing in the stock market in the 7th grade. Communication satellite was a winner. I made some money on that. And one of my brothers, 6 years older, I loaned him his money for his engagement ring when I was in freshman high school. So I was a little bit of a businessman way back when. And I love business. To this day, I just love to do business. I immerse myself and I enjoy it immensely.
What makes a good entrepreneur?
You know, people use all sorts of adjectives, persistence and things like that. And there's other words I could use, but the real key and the ingredient that makes entrepreneurs successful is moxie. It's, if you get hit and you go down with a left hook, do you come up with a right cross or do you roll over? And when I interview people from my companies, I say, you know, you think you're going to have one of these successes that I've had without working 6.5 days a week until 10 and 12 o'clock at night, you're crazy, because it's all hard work and it's outworking your competition. Not just outthinking, but outworking. So really, I look for people who have the ability to withstand a setback and move forward. So my background in Queens, New York, being a little bit of a fighter and a little bit of a kid that never gave up really helps me as an entrepreneur. Because I was just on the phone literally this morning with one of my investors, and I just don't give up. Persistence, but more than it's dogged persistence. It's dogged persistence. It's not just, you know, steady as you go. You've got to be determined, and you've got to believe in what you're doing. You've got to be a little bit crazy about what you're doing. Just like with the woman, you got to be crazy about your companies. You got to believe in it. You got to dream about it. When you wake up in the morning, you got to be thinking about it. When you go to sleep, you got to be thinking about it. So it's.
You use the boxing metaphor. You had Roy Jones Jr. as a partner. Why don't you tell us about that?
I was on the board of Sports Authority at the time when things went well. We turned it around positively. And then I started a sporting goods company with one of the founders of the Limited. And Roy came into my apartment at Trump Tower at that time and said, I want to be a businessman like you. I said, Roy, you're about to fight for the heavyweight championship. What do you want to, you don't need to be a businessman. He says, no, I really mean it. I said, if you want to, we'll be partners, but it's going to be 50-50. I'm not an agent. He said, let's go. So I was in the ring when he won the heavyweight championship, and we were partners for several years after that. I got him the first seat at HBO and got some books written about him and put him on TV in China, and really enjoyed working with Roy. He's a great boxer. He's a brilliant guy. Only problem is he decided he wanted to be, and it wasn't a problem for him, but he wanted to be a hip-hop star. And, you know, some people who are really talented hip-hop stars, Roy perhaps wasn't one of the top hip-hop people, and so that hip-hop thing took over a little bit from his boxing, and quite frankly, I was really into the boxing part of it, not the hip-hop star. I love hip-hop, but Roy Jones wasn't necessarily the best candidate for it. But I wish him well. I just spoke to him about 3 weeks ago, and I was in the ring with him many times, and it was a dream come true. As a kid, I used to, you know, watch Friday night fights with my dad, and so I could name off all the champions and all the fighters and the challengers. I really enjoy boxing. And so, yes, my metaphors are often in terms of teamwork, in terms of I hate the word I love the word we, and I don't like the word they, I like the word us. And if people work for me, they know that I don't like to see in a memo the word I like to see the word we. We lose, we win, we do it together. And I think that's a philosophy we need a lot more, not only in business, but perhaps in politics in this country, but we'll stay away from that for now.
All right, you have degrees from Cornell and St. John's Universities,
Yes.
and you studied at the London School of Economics and Political Science.
Yes.
And now you're teaching global innovation and commercialization at Cornell's Johnson.
I've been there now for 10 years. I love it. It's a lot of work. At Christmas vacation, I just spent time. I start preparing for my class months in advance because I have some real smart graduate students, mostly PhD MBAs, and I really love it because it keeps me up with the times. I know a little bit about artificial intelligence. I know a little bit about driverless cars. It's global innovation, so the course changes every year. And I really love it because it keeps me up tuned. I like to tell my kids what's next instead of them telling me. Of course, that's not always true because they educate me a lot more than I educate them. But I really like to keep up with the global trends. I'm an international businessman. I love to do business around the world, and I love to know what the patterns are around the world. Trends, very important.
So what do you see in this current crop of students?
Well, I teach in the spring at Cornell, and so I'll meet my new crop of students in March, but it's always very international. Usually I want 30 students, but they give me 35, which is okay. And last year we had 12 countries represented. So it's a very international group. And you know what? There'll be a student from a country that I don't know very much about, and so I'll say to the student, you're going to teach us. Next week, you're getting up for 15 minutes and tell us about innovation in your country. But innovation is not, just a linear thing or a light bulb thing. Innovation is a process. And U.S. is still the leader. And people say, well, will U.S. continue to be a leader in innovation? And I say, you bet we will, because as long as we keep our freedom. And they say, what do you mean freedom? I say, not only the freedom to create and the freedom to have a poor kid like me have a decent life in terms of success in business, but the freedom to fail. You go around the world and people don't realize that one failure and you're out of the box in certain of these countries. You get ostracized. In America, you fail and people pat you on the behind and say, go for it, let's see another one. And that's a beautiful thing about this country. As entrepreneurs and people's trying, we encourage each other to try and try again. And that's the reason why we are so creative and innovative, is because we keep trying until we succeed.
You mentioned that linear experience. How has everything in your background brought you to this point?
It's definitely not been linear. My attitude has always been can do. I got a law degree. I had a law practice. I had 12 lawyers working for me. I represented the largest acquisition fund in the world. We did only M&A. Everybody said, well, a small firm like that can't represent big boys like that. Well, we did. It's an attitude of can do. And so every time I hear about new technologies, I'm literally here yesterday and I'm learning from a guy from Silicon Valley about transformative technologies. I love to learn new things, and it keeps me young. It keeps me vital, is I'm learning. If you stop me in the airport and you check my briefcase, one, I read a lot on the iPad, but also I got articles about whatever I'm doing. I need to know about that area, and I don't want to know about it on the surface. I want to know in depth about it, because the more you learn about it, the more you can understand what the next trend is. I own the rights to an expression, catch the current, make the wave. And you don't learn the current by skimming across the water. You go down inside, you meet the gurus, you meet the intelligent people who really know about that industry and find out, okay, what's next and why. And have them as your partners. Make them the rudders of your ship.
One of the projects we want to talk about is the Water Innovations Alliance Foundation's Water Initiative, which creates customized and sustainable drinking water solutions. Tell us exactly what the Water Initiative is.
As with most of my businesses, Joe, they relate to something in my past. I really believe that if you learn a lot about a particular industry, that's really helpful to understand what's going to be cutting edge, bleeding edge in the industry. So I was one of the 3 owners of a company called KX Industries, and we developed the Pure filter for Procter & Gamble, the first refrigerator filter for Electrolux, and the first end-of-tap filter for Brita. So we were a leader in-home filter device systems, filtration of water. When we sold that company very successfully some years ago, I realize Pure and Brita are wonderful, but they don't do that much. We had the technology, we're very proud of it. They really just, it's activated carbon and it takes out chlorine and takes out some of the contaminants, but not comprehensively. So I founded the Water Initiative to create a next series, an advanced series of water filtration devices that take everything out. Those things that cause waterborne diseases. According to the UN, WHO, World Health Organization, 80% of all of our diseases, including cancer, are caused by the water we drink and cook with. And so the devices that we now have, the filtration systems for in-home, we have a refillable bottle, a portable, and a countertop, they take it all out. They take out the arsenic that causes cancer. They take out fluoride that causes brain damage. They take out the bacteria and the viruses. Pure and Brita don't do comprehensively anything close to the job that we do. So we're more apropos for international marketplaces like in Africa, like in China, where Pure and Brita, you don't see them there because they don't do enough to help. They don't take out the bacteria that's prevalent in those countries, et cetera. So that's my mission. Clean water is my passion. It's one of the reasons I think I'm here. I'll never forget seeing a quote. I love quotes. I love wise people and learn from them. I never forget a Mark Twain quote. I love it. Is the two most important days of your life: the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And one of the reasons I'm on Earth is to help out with getting attention to clean water. And so I wrote a paper for the Trump administration on what is needed for a water plan in this country. And I don't care who's the administration, everybody needs to have a water plan and a way of addressing the water contamination issues in this country. And the U.S. has got real problems. And we could talk about that, but we have severe arsenic. About 1/3 of Americans are drinking water with arsenic in them, et cetera. Lead, flint. I wrote a letter to Bob Casey, senator from Pennsylvania, my dear, dear friend. I said, Bob, there's 17 cities in Pennsylvania with higher lead content than Flint. What are we doing about it? And he set me up with the DEP in Pennsylvania, and we're working together with that. But it's a problem in the United States. It's not just a problem in emerging countries around the world. So it's important to me.
How does the system work to remove those contaminants?
It's a multi-filter system. And so one filter does not take it all out. And it was all developed by my scientific relationships at Cornell and MIT. I co-chaired technology at Cornell as a trustee, the task force. And so I work closely with some of the leading scientists in the world. The leading inventor in the United States is one of my principals in my company, Bob Langer, graduate of Cornell, and the most famous professor perhaps at MIT. So I work a lot with the scientific community in consumer products.
So you install point-of-drinking devices. Is that right in the home?
Right in the home. You put it in your refrigerator, you put it at the end of your tap, you put it on your countertop. The closer to your lips that you clean that water, the more you eliminate waterborne diseases. It's not sufficient to have good water coming out of a water treatment plant. It goes right into pipes that recontaminate the water. I mean, those pipes are filled with arsenic and lead. And also, you think those pipes are clean? Forget it. So it recontaminates. So you got to do it just before you drink it or just before you cook with it. Because cooking with bad water is just as bad. Boiling gets rid of bacteria, but it doesn't get rid of cancer-causing metals like arsenic and fluoride, et cetera.
So those devices are installed in third world homes?
We're in Latin America. We have 4 projects all over the world. We're now been approved for Walmart and some of the agencies in the United States. And the largest employer of women in the world, I can't mention who they are, just engaged us. We've completed a filter preparation program, and we'll be in their filters around the world. So we're more now behind the scenes developing filtration systems for those who are out there retailing. And I'm happy about that. As long as we're part of the solution, happy, happy.
Who are some of the partners?
By the way, our brand name is WaterCura, and watercura.com is where you can buy one of our products. Got to put a plug in there.
Okay. Who are some of the partners in that initiative with you?
You mean corporate partners? That's where I have to tell you that it's somewhat confidential. But the largest employer of women in the world is one of our partners. And the largest utility in the United States is one of our partners. So you can add that one up. But all of these product development programs are subject to confidentiality. So I'd love to tell you that one of the largest mining companies in the world, when you see a mine say a gold mine. You know how you find a gold mine? You look for arsenic. So a lot of these mines around the world, for 50 to 100 miles surrounding, that well water is contaminated. And so they need to make sure that not only their employees, but the surrounding areas, those people have water purification devices to alleviate the issues that they've created. It's a huge problem.
Quincy Jones is also a partner of yours, right?
I just spoke to him last Wednesday, and he's my beloved brother. My first meeting with him was about 10 years ago. It was supposed to be an hour. It went 6 hours. And he told me we're kindred spirits. And I was off to Rome with him for a concert. I've been to Morocco, and he's near and dear. He's such a beautiful guy. And he's always rooting for me, and I love the man. He's just an amazing support system for what we're doing, and for so many other people around the world. He's a beautiful, beautiful person. He's the man. Yeah. Best way to describe Quincy, the man. He's beautiful. I just spoke to him on Wednesday night, and we talk regularly, and he always has some ideas and some inspiration. I said, Q, you're 83. I need you at least another 20. So, you know, you got to be around till 103, because I need your inspiration. So he said, I'm going to try, bud. He just lost some weight, so he's looking good, so he's trying.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you also work to groom young people in science and technology fields?
Absolutely. I work very closely, not only with Cornell, but my favorite thing to do is to speak to kids in the inner city. So I speak to kids at Banana Kelly High School in South Bronx, in Harlem, in Newark, Camden, New Jersey. I like to talk to them about my life. You know, they see this old geezer walking in, but when they find out that I was on a fire escape studying, I didn't have a bedroom, I had a really nice couch, and that, you know, you can do. This is a great country. And with a little faith in God and a little bit of that moxie I talked about, you can make it. So I always tell them, and again, one of my favorite expressions, you can achieve the impossible. You got to break it into possible steps. And the next step in your life is tomorrow. Make it to school and be a 9 and a 10 instead of hanging out with people who are bringing you down. You know, hang out with people who elevate your game. And so I love to talk to kids. That's really important to me.
Okay. The second project we want to talk about is a science-based calorie-reducing beverage that provides healthy energy using quality ingredients. What is that called?
Celsius. Okay. My beverage background, again, things relate to my past and they go to the future. I was one of the 3 founders of Sobe. Okay, and Sobe was an incredible success. We sold our first case. Of course, one of my partners, John, says it was in Rye, New York. It was in Greenwich, Connecticut at Paisano's Deli. But we were literally selling a case at a time. And within 4 years, we were 2/3 the size of Snapple. And I was then talking to Pepsi and Coke and put them in a bidding war. But it was a total success. We were outselling Snapple in about 2/3 of all the demographic cities in the country. It was a huge, huge success. And why it was a success is we were the first to bring herbs to a mass beverage. Ginseng, ginkgo, guarana, and then Arizona and Snapple all followed us. So after that, it was a huge success. Lots of people took credit for it, God bless. All of us had a part as a team. I had a lot of opportunities to go into beverage companies. I heard every one, and I was asked to be on the board of, I don't know, 50 to 100. I didn't take any of them. And then I got involved with a group down in Florida who were in the smoothie business, because I knew smoothies was really coming on. This is about 6, 7 years ago when smoothies was developing but really coming on. And those 2 partners and I really grew a nice business in the smoothie business, which we sold recently very, very profitably. And they introduced me to the concept of this calorie-eating beverage. And so as you know, the trends in beverage, we've had high calorie, less calorie, no calorie. I got to tell you, I think the next category that's going to be huge around the world is lose calorie. And what it basically is it's hyperthermic, and it's a high energy. So it's got a high amount of taurine and caffeine. It's great if you're working out. But 7 scientific studies show that Celsius, when you drink it, you lose calories. Okay? But more importantly, when you work out after you've drunk a Celsius, you burn a lot more fat. So people in the fitness business really know about it. So I met the principals, and they told me a little bit about their success in Scandinavia, in Sweden, and it's become just about the #1 energy drink. So I said, maybe we can help you in other international places where I've done business. I've done business in 80 countries around the world. And so they gave me the rights to some countries, and right now I'm working on bringing Celsius to many other countries around the world. I just on the phone today about Japan and getting through the regulatory process there, Canada, Mexico, et cetera. So I'm working to help them build their international presence. Malaysia and Singapore, I have great connections there, and so we're working together there, et cetera, et cetera. So I love bringing business around the world and bringing good products and rolling them out. Frankly, and I don't mean this egotistically, I'm better known in Singapore than I am in the U.S. I have great relationships. I'm going to Panama tomorrow. I love working in other countries with wonderful, wonderful people, and I have great relationships around the world. That's my strength, is relationships.
So. Celsius widely available here?
Yeah, it's in 7-Eleven, GNC. It's grown by 30% now, year over year. It's doing very, very well. Yes, it's doing very well. It's growing nicely. I think, as I said, it's the next category of beverages, and you'll see Pepsi and Coke. They don't want to be involved. Pepsi and Coke are not doing so well with their standard products. They need to be more creative, as evidenced by some purchases they just made. Dr. Pepper bought BAI, for I think it was $1.2 billion and only $200 million in sales, or $1.7 billion. It's amazing what beverage companies are being sold for now. It used to be you sold companies at multiple of earnings and profit. Now these beverage companies and many other companies are selling for 7, 8, 9 times sales. That's pretty good. So if you can get to a critical mass of 50, 100, 150 in sales, you can walk away with a check that's got a B on it instead of an M.
Okay. Another of your interests is in dermatology.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Again, totally related to the past. My biggest business in my lifetime so far has been to introduce alpha hydroxy acids to the world. It is by far the most successful technology in skincare history. And the two doctors, I was introduced to them by the head of J&J, Johnson & Johnson, and they were scientists, and he said, you guys need this pit bull, that's the expression, pit bull businessman, lawyer, McGovern. And so you got to take on the entire skincare world because you've got the best technology. And he was working with retinols and Retin-A. So I met them, and I really loved their technology. We've got a lot of patents, about 100 patents. We built a whole program, and then we brought it to the world. And it's the most successful technology in the history of L'Oreal, Avon, and Estee Lauder. And it's the wrinkle cream that women often, they have to put on their skin to eliminate the wrinkles. And they do work. They're efficacious. They eliminate fine lines. They reduce wrinkles. And it's been a total success. So Les Riley, who's the fellow who introduced me to the two doctors, calls me up and says, I'm working in dermatology again. And one of the biggest areas in dermatology now is all these dermatologists carry inventory. They're dispensing physicians because they're not making as much money in their practices. They need to make more money selling product. But they don't want to carry inventory. It wastes space, right? It costs them real estate. So we've created a platform called Regimen, whereby the dermatologist simply tells the patient, here's what I want you to get, 3 or 4 products. My staff person will put an order on Regimen's platform, and it'll be drop shipped to you within 48 hours. And we have an exclusive contract with about 24 of the leading skincare companies. So the net is we replace the need for the dermatologist to carry inventory. The second product that we just launched right in this apartment about a month ago with Smokey Robinson is a woman of color, a skincare formulated by the best. This is not a hype. This is the best of the formulators from J&J and from some of the top skincare companies, and it's made for women of color. And it's for Afro-American women, Latin women, and Asian women, because they have different pigment in their skin that creates issues. And this is made specifically for them. So literally this afternoon, one of the stars on Broadway, who's an Afro-American, will be here because I've been assigned to find a few leading ladies and then leading men who will support us as celebrity testimonials for our product. But I already have a distributor now in Africa, and I have a distributor in the Caribbean, and I believe that the women of color will tell you that not many skincare companies address their issues like we will. And that is 80% of the women in the world have pigment issues. And so it's a big market, and I think it's a huge opportunity. So again, the present relating to my past experiences and to the district. So.
And that product is called Skin Phonic?
It's called Skin Phonic, and the brand names are My Girl, Smokey Song, and Get Ready for Men.
Temptations.
Yep, you got it, man. Of course, Smokey is Mr. Motown. And you know, I was down in D.C., I met Smokey and we're just now total friends. He's such a beautiful guy. I mean, he's a little older, but boy, does he look good. And his wife Frances and his dear friend Leon Isaacs Kennedy and his wife Maureen, we've become really buddies. So he won the special award in Washington, the Library of Congress Award. And so I met Barry Gordy. And so Smokey brings me over, and we're sitting with Barry Gordy, and I'm thinking, why didn't I take a shot? Would that be cool? Smokey and Barry. I mean, that's, it's not Quincy. Quincy's my man, but Barry and Smokey were Motown, as you well know. Right. And they are still best buddies, which is really cool. After about 50 years of business, that's really, really good.
Okay. The last area we want to discuss right now is one of the hot new fields, medical cannabis.
Yes.
Medicinal cannabis.
Yes.
Your company is called Canna Enterprises.
Yes.
How did you get involved in that?
You know, I'm a pretty spiritual guy, Joe, and I think that God talks to you in different ways. And years ago, with my partner, then all of Europe with 300 million. I'm sitting there, and I love working with scientists. I tell you, I co-chaired at Cornell, which is one of the top scientific universities in the world. And I'm thinking, you know, I've been to Israel, but I've never really connected with the scientific community. 3 weeks later, I want to learn a little bit about cannabis. I go to a conference and I meet Oded Sagi, former head of the USDA of Israel. I meet him at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he's on this couch at 1 o'clock the next morning. We met for about 14 hours, okay? I brought in a couple partners that I work with. He brought in a couple partners to work with. 3 weeks later, I'm in Israel. A month later, I'm making an investment in 3 companies. And the reason is this. There's more medical research in cannabis going on in Israel than the rest of the world combined. There's 25,000 patients taking medical cannabis of different forms, and we are showing that it cures IBD and Crohn's. We are showing that it clearly affects epilepsy and autism. And one of the great discoveries of the last 30 years, but most people don't know, is Professor Maushalom, who's sort of the Einstein of medical cannabis. He's a professor at Hebrew University in Israel. I had the honor of meeting him. He basically discovered with a group in the US the endocannabinoid system in the human body. We have an endocannabinoid system which governs our homeostasis, the receptors that go throughout our body to govern when we have issues in our body. What's being proven, and this is the holy grail, is that phytocannabinoids, plant-based, affect, cure, whatever, maintain issues in our endocannabinoid system in our body. Once that is completely confirmed, and it's darn close.
Patented products you have are an oral gel and a cannabis-infused fertilizer. Want to tell us a little about how that works?
Well, the oral gel is actually revolutionary. It was used in chemotherapy for throat cancer. Bottom line is, the mucosal membrane underneath your tongue is the best access point to put a medicine into your body and directly in your bloodstream quickly. The lungs are pretty good too. And long story short, what the oral gel is a patch that you put underneath your tongue, and within 3.5 minutes, 85% of the medicine that's in the patch is delivered directly into your blood system. So, and 100% after 5 minutes. Bottom line is, the way people are getting medical cannabis now is many different forms, but some of them are not very social. Smoking, okay? And or sublinguals, where you just simply put a strip in your mouth. That strip dissolves in 15 seconds. At most, they say somewhere from 6 to 10% of the medicine eventually gets in your blood system after it goes through your digestive system, etc. This is direct, right in, okay? And so we believe this will transform delivery of medical cannabis, and we have the rights to that, patent rights to that. So we're very excited about that. And again, I just spoke about that this morning to some of the medicinal cannabis people. But it's an application for medicinal cannabis all over the world.
And the fertilizer would do what? Grow the cannabis right into the food?
Well, Cannabis is a very important nutrient, and it's very helpful in the growth of fruits and vegetables, etc. And in addition, we've coupled that with a patented technology, a hydrous gel that contains the moisture a lot longer. So in essence, you can grow the same fruit or vegetable with 10% of the water that you needed before. And it will be a better vegetable. Not only will it be a better vegetable, but you'll use a lot less water. So we think it's somewhat revolutionary. And we have a software system that we developed and licensed from the University of Hebrew University in Jerusalem that is a software system so you can monitor it as well. So it's a totally integrated system of growing things in a very scientific and comprehensive way and growing it a lot better than the old ways of doing it. And as you know, the Israelis are pretty good at growing fruit and vegetables in a desert. They've done a pretty good job over the last 20 years, so, or 30 years, whatever.
You know, Kevin, it's hard to say whether you're more of a businessman or a scientist or a philosopher. What does the future hold for you?
More of the same. To me, being active is the key to being successful. And I always tell people you got your mind, your body, and your spirit. And the more they're aligned, the more you nourish them every day, the happier and more successful you will be. So I will continue every day to nourish my mind, my body, and my spirit, and do things that make me feel better about myself and what I'm giving to my fellow mankind. Simple as that. Very simple. Life is not that complicated.
Okay, and last, on a personal note, you recently were the recipient of the American Irish Historical Society's Gold Medal for your life of service and achievements. You must be pretty proud to be Irish, and they must be pretty proud of you.
Well, thank you, but my father being an immigrant, it was a very emotional thing to win because my father was the brains that brought us forth, as well as my mother, and to win that award was very, very special. There was a lot of other recipients a lot more deserving, like President Reagan and George Mitchell won it last year, and I was really honored and humbled by it, and it was really good to have my family there, and having some relatives from Ireland was sort of cool. So it was a very, very special moment for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin McGovern, for joining us, and I'm sure all our viewers are very interested to learn more about all of this wellness and everything that you're doing. So thank you. And
thank you, Joe.
And thank our viewers for watching. And I'm Joe Griffith for Decade Lifestyle. We'll see you next time. Stay healthy and fit.